I'm Yuri, and today I'm going to be talking about content creation. We're going to go through the common mistakes, what you should avoid, what kind of audiences you should focus on, what you should look for in a tool, and a lot of other fun stuff. So let's just get started. Who am I? I'm a completely self-taught full stack developer. I used to be a lawyer up until 2 years ago. I decided to become a technical writer because since I had no technical knowledge at all, and I rarely saw content directed to those audiences that came from a non-technical background, the same way that I was. So that's why I decided to become a technical writer, to make the content that I didn't see much of. Now I'm a content creator. I make YouTube videos, I make tutorials, I make how-to guides, I have a blog, I have a newsletter, you name it, I probably have done it. I really enjoy helping people, that's why I become a content creator. And I'm currently working as a developer relations advocate at Funester. It's really fun and I love my team. So, let's start with technical content writing. What is technical writing? Technical writing is just making difficult concepts as easy as possible for the readers. That if an experienced reader stumbles upon your content, they're gonna be able to know what you're talking about the same way an inexperienced user will do. So we see this in the field mostly in the form of documentation, but there are also other examples like user guides, tutorials, case studies, and many other things that make difficult products easy to understand for the user, whether or not they have previous knowledge on the tool. So now that we kind of know what technical content is, because we need to deepen this definition a little bit more. So we need to identify our audience to be able to know what kind of content, what kind of voice we want to deliver to them, because they have really specific needs that we need to fulfill every time we're creating content. So we can identify two types of audiences: developers and users. Developers play more of an active role when reading and interacting with your content. They're more focused on API documentation, READMEs that have the source code, system documentation that explains how everything works, release note about like upcoming features, bug reports, and stuff like that. And it's like if your project is open source, it's more likely for them to interact with the product and help you make your product better with code contributions, documentation contributions, if they can see themselves using it and understanding what it is about. So on the other end of the spectrum, we have users. They play more of a mixed audience because they are both active and passive, because they want to know how to use your product, they want to know what is it about, they want to know your content, they want, if you make a tutorial, they want to be able to complete it and understand what you're talking about. So they both consume and interact with the content. We see this commonly with how-to guides that take the user to complete a task, tutorials that show a user how to do something, explanations that deepen the knowledge on the product, and reference docs that deepen the technical knowledge that they might want in the content that you're making, in the documentation. So now that we have identified our audience, we need to pick a tool. And as you can see, I didn't put any names here because I'm not a sponsor. I'm kidding. But it's because I thoroughly believe that tools should make your life easy. And by this, I mean that the platform that you pick should be providing you visibility. And by that I mean that it should push your content forward. You shouldn't have to worry about publicizing it, of course. If you have a Twitter account, a LinkedIn account, you should post it and provide that visibility yourself. But the platform that you use should be helping you a little bit on pushing it to other users, making it available for other people to see what you're writing and to help you out with the visibility of your content. It should also make your life easy by providing easy editing tools. Most of them are based on Markdown, so you should be able to quickly pick up header tags, paragraph tags, image tags, video tags, anything that you might need to convey the meaning that you want, the content that you want, in an easy way. And the most important part that I think you should focus on when picking a tool It's having the confidence in that you own your content, because you are putting a lot of effort in it. And what if down the line you want to create your own blogging platform? What's going to happen with that content? You should be able to own your own content and later pass it to maybe like another platform that you want to use that fits your needs better, or your own that you build and you just want your content there. So those are things that you should keep in mind when picking a tool. I'm not gonna mention names here, but you should really be mindful of these things, especially being the owner of your own content, because that's really important. So now that we've seen the content and the audiences and the tools that we might want to use and what we need to look for in tools, how do we start? I think this is the most common question when you talk to content creators. Like, how do I start? How can I get started creating content, writing, making YouTube videos, making anything? You just gotta start with an idea. Okay, let's break this list down. Let's start with an idea. Everything you see, every type of content that you see, everything you've ever consumed, it started with an idea. Everything starts with an idea, but it is not finished. You gotta do your research, and that's the second step. Why? Because even if you think you know everything about an idea, it might be incomplete. You might expand the knowledge on that idea that you're trying to write content about. The research is also going to expand the content outline that you might do, because you might want to take your idea one way, but then you do your research and you realize that maybe that wasn't ideal, so you take another way. So after we do our research, we gotta determine the audience. Like we said, it's users or developers, but there's nothing black and white in this world. So you should find like a sweet middle ground between experienced developers and new users coming to your content. So after this, we need to create an outline. Think of this as the skeleton that the content is gonna have. Like the example of a markdown blog, think about the headers, think about the paragraph tags, think about the image tags, think about the skeleton and how you want to present it to the final user. That's how they're gonna see it. And then just sit down and start writing. Like that, I think this is the easiest part, because you've already done the hard work, you've done the research, you've determined the audience, you're creating your outline. Now it's time to write. So you sit down, you write. After you're done, and this is like personal recommendation, you don't have to do it, but I would recommend standing up, taking a walk around, getting out of that mindset that you were when you first started writing, because you're deep in content, you know what you're talking about, and that's what you're writing about. So you need to like switch mentalities, go for a walk, maybe watch a movie, listen to some music, and then come back to the article or the content that you were making and see if it makes sense for the user. And this is the review part. You gotta see if what you wrote has meaning, if it aligns with the title, if it follows the outline that you first had in mind, if it follows the same steps, if it's easy to follow, if a user stumbles upon it, is it gonna know what it is about? So after all of this is done, you have to do it all over again. Like, okay, you posted it. Now what? You gotta do it all over again, because content is only gonna get better with consistency. So you gotta start again. You gotta start with another idea. Of course, you gotta do your research. You gotta determine your audience to determine the tone of voice that you're gonna use also in the content. You gotta create the outline because you wanna know how you're gonna present that content to the people. And then you write it and then review it and then start again and start again. That's why I put like a recycle, a repeat symbol at the bottom, because you keep on doing this every time you make content. This is not just a one-time process. Every time you're gonna make content, you're gonna go through the same structure or a similar structure, because this is not set on stone. You can actually make it your own. Like maybe you want to start with research and then you get an idea. Maybe you have the topic that you want to talk about, but you don't know what exactly you want to talk about. So you do your research first and then you do your idea. Or you first start thinking like, well, I want to write something just for developers. So you go deep into technical knowledge and you go do your research and then you do an idea. So like this is really flexible and I recommend you do it your own. But this is most of the time the schedule that you're going to follow every time you write content or make content. Just think about it, and you don't even have to follow this one. This is just like some pointers to look for when you're making content, how to start making content. And just let me know if you mix it up. It's totally fine. That's fun. But now that we have started, okay, we have seen what technical content is, how to determine our audience, the tools, how to start. And now that we have our article and we're really proud of it, and we're like, oh my god, this is amazing, like we want to post it. Let's talk about some common mistakes that you might want to avoid, that are really common and it's like really easy to see. And let's start with assuming the reader has the same technical knowledge as you. You should always think of the reader first, the person consuming your content first while you're making it, so it can make sense, because you know what you're talking about, but they don't know what you're talking about. So you want to make it as accessible as possible. So, assuming the reader has the same technical knowledge as you, it's gonna limit your audience a lot. And it's gonna make the reader feel a little bit lost. And we can see this by, for example, not explaining how to install something in documentation, not explaining what something does, just explaining the steps. It's not like you're gonna make like a 10 pages article. It's not that. It's that you gotta provide some kind of background knowledge, like, okay, we're gonna do this step and this is gonna do this, so the reader is not that confused or that lost when reading your content. The second more common mistake we see is not disclosing acronyms, and we see this a lot actually, like in documentation and technical writing, because they're for a developer audience, right? So they're supposed to know the acronyms, but keep in mind, I come from a law background. So I had zero technical knowledge and I was still consuming that type of content. So what I will do is to stop reading. I will have to go to Google, look what that meant, look what it was for, look why that related to the thing that I was reading, and then come back to the article. And that's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid the reader or the user to feel the need to look for that information on external sources. You want to be able to provide it yourself, So try to disclose every and any acronym that you use on your articles, because it's gonna make their life easier. The third most common mistake is using passive voice instead of active voice. Using passive voice is gonna make your sentences way longer and a little bit like wordy and hard to follow. Instead of using active voice is like, follow me on Twitter, follow me on YouTube, and subscribe, totally like self-promo, but that's active voice. I'm encouraging you to do something. I've done it, and I'm encouraging you to do it. Like, you should install this, you should follow this guide. Those are some examples of using active voice, and it's way more effective than using passive voice when you're trying to communicate something. So, the last one is skipping minor steps you think are a given. And everything goes back to the first step by assuming the reader has the same technical knowledge as you, when they don't. So skipping minor steps, we see this in documentation, like I said. Sometimes they don't explain to you how to install the command line interface, the CLI. Sometimes they don't tell you what an NPM package is for, node package management. So it's about giving the reader, like, okay, we're gonna install this, but this is gonna serve us for this. This is gonna be useful for us in the near future, so just download it and keep it there because this is gonna do this. So it's about giving the reader that may or may not have the same technical knowledge as you a little bit of background on the things that they are doing. So we already saw common mistakes. These are the things that you want to avoid. You don't want to commit this. But what are the things that you do want to do? Like, how can I improve my content? Because this is what everyone is here for. Ways to improve your content. How can I make my content better? So we can go through this simple list, and it's writing simple terms. And by this, I don't mean like a condescending tone for developers and dumbing things down for people that have no technical knowledge. I don't mean this. I mean simple English. You don't need to have like heavy technical concepts or terminology on a guide. And if you do, you need to explain them, because you should never assume the reader has the same technical knowledge as you. So writing simple English, try to make your content as accessible as possible, and don't try to limit yourself. to that technical barrier, right? Second tip, kind of tip, have a style guide. And you don't have to make it from scratch. There are a lot of style guides on Google. You can just Google one and see which one resonates with you. But having a style guide is gonna make the user more comfortable with the content that you do, because they are already expecting a certain structure, certain way that you write stuff. They know the tone of voice that you're using, whether that is for developers, users, or maybe just some content that you want to post, like a friendly type of content. And by having this, they're gonna feel more comfortable in the voice that you have given your content. Tracking changes. This is really important, because especially if you're writing documentation, because you want a way to revert back to the version that didn't have the changes. Because let's see this example. You work at a company and they release a product with a new feature, and the users hate that feature. They want nothing to do with that feature, so they have to remove it, and you obviously have to fix now the documentation to how it was. But it's easier to just revert to a previous version of the documentation instead of just going through it again. So it's always helpful, in a way, to see how much you've improved as a person. I will recommend that, like, if you're just starting, to post every single blog and then come back to it once you have like a couple of months of writing content, and see how much you've changed, how you've adapted your tone of voice for the audience that is reading your articles. And this draws me back to think about the users reading your documentation. You should always keep your users first. They should always be a priority. So you should make your content inclusive and accessible to them. You should be able to make content that if someone with a screen reader, they can read it the same way someone without a screen reader can. You should have accessibility guides on check. You should have that on clutch. You should be able to provide the same quality content to people that use accessibility tools and those who don't. You should be able to provide a good contrast ratio with the images, with the content. If you're making like visual content, you should be making it really clear, and for people with low visibility and stuff like that. So the thing is to make your content as accessible as possible. Now, another way, a really big, important way to improve your content is to get community feedback. And I think it's really important to mention here that you are not your content. It's really important to detach yourself from the idea that you are your content. Your content is something that you do and you provide for the community, but that is not you. Because you're gonna get bad feedback, and you're gonna get like rude people that are gonna want to voice their own opinions about your content. And that's totally fine. You shouldn't take it personally. That's just how they're perceiving your content. That has nothing to do with the way that you are, with the way that you presented it. That's the way they're perceiving your content. So I will say, just get community feedback and adapt it to the content that you're making. And this drives me to the next step: consistency and adaptability. You gotta be able to adapt to the feedback, the positive and good feedback that you actually get from the community, because ultimately they're the ones you're making content for. So you want to make things that they want. So consistency, because all of this I've said and talked about means nothing, absolutely nothing, without consistency. You can be the most amazing content creator ever, but if you're not constant with it, it means nothing. There's only one way to improve, and that is making daily improvements every single day. And even if you have like troubles with scheduling time, there are a lot of tools online that can help you schedule some types of content to go out at certain times. I would recommend you check that. But ultimately, consistency and repetition is what's gonna make you a good content creator. So all that being said, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to connect with me. That's my user on every single platform. I'm probably on everything. But if you want to see more of my content, you should follow me on Twitter, Hashnote, GitHub, and YouTube. That's where I post the most. I think you're gonna see this presentation on YouTube because I recorded it for YouTube. And you're gonna see more about me, my personality on Twitter, my blogs on Hashnote, my code on GitHub. So please make sure to connect with me. And if you have any other questions, make sure to leave them in the comment section. Or you can feel free, my DMs are open. You can just DM me, it's totally fine. And I really hope you enjoyed it. And thank you so much for being with me. And I'm looking forward to seeing the content you create with these guidelines. So see you on the next one.